Today I'm making a project for my daughter who is 2 years old and she's growing up fast. There are times that she cannot be in the same environment with me when I'm working, but then there are times that she can. And in order to get her involved, I'm going to make her a learning tower. After looking for ideas and inspiration on the internet, I found a design that was like this one, and I did my best to recreate it. And you can find these online going for $200 and above, and I spent around $70 on this build. After designing this in a 3D modeling software, the design was then exported and then imported into Easel. Easel is a simple way to take your design, import it, and then send it to the CNC so you can carve up your design. If you're looking to explore and tinker with CNCs, this is probably a good starting point. The learning tower is actually too big to be carved in one piece. To make this doable, the tower was cut in half and then carved in two separate pieces. I also had to set the depth of the plywood that I was using. To speed up this process, I used a 1/4 inch sheet of plywood, and that allowed me to get through the carving part much faster. So basically I'm building a template so I can then duplicate that onto a sheet of plywood. After going through all the setup and configuration, it was time to let the CNC take over and do its thing. I have had the X-Carve for quite some time now, and because I don't use it a lot, I tend to forget how useful this thing is. Now this video is not necessarily a how-to, but more so of me sharing my process in creating something that I wanted to bring to life. Doing this project really gave me some ideas for creating a larger scale design. Now I would like to know if you guys are interested in seeing bigger scale designs come together from smaller carves like this. When you're doing carves in the Easel software, you automatically add tabs on all the pieces so when they get cut out they don't go flopping around everywhere. You can move the location of the tabs in the Easel software. Sometimes they put it in a location that you may not necessarily want it. Minus the feet, these are pretty much all the pieces I need to build this tower. I sanded the areas that needed attention. The better the template is, the better your design is going to turn out. The entire learning tower was built from one sheet of plywood, which cost me less than $50. Place the template down on the plywood. This way I have a general idea on how much do I need. I traced the templates onto the piece of plywood. This way I can cut out the bulk of this using a jigsaw. Making some of these cuts can be pretty tough. If you don't have the right blade, you could cause a lot of tear out, and on top of that, you probably won't be able to get the right turn. If I can find it online, I'll link it down below, but I'm using a scroll blade. Out of all the blades I had, this one gave the cleanest cut. At this point, all the jigsaw rough cut is pretty much done, so I'm now going to take the templates and use two-sided tape to attach them to the plywood that I cut. As I explained earlier, the two template will equal one side. So it's pretty important to go ahead and line those up and attach both of them to the sheet of plywood. And this is where this project started to get fun for me. I used a flush trim bit at the router table. If you're unfamiliar with a flush trim bit, what it is there's a router bit with a bearing at the tip of it. That bearing right along the template, which then cuts the plywood beneath the template to the same shape. I started off with a 1/4 inch flush trim bit, and that was taking like way too long, so I switched it out for a 1/2 inch one. And man, what a big difference. This thing was just eating through the plywood. Now I thought about it and I should have been using this from the start, but for whatever reason I decided not to use it. Not sure if I was saving it for a rainy day or not. Either way, I caused myself a lot of time by just fighting with the smaller bit. It's been a while since I created so much dust, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. So I was a little stumped around this area trying to figure out which way should I start assembling this, and I ended up doing a dry fit so I can attach the arch pieces from the bottom first. After setting the heights, I marked and drilled out the location for the screws. I wanted to keep all the screw heads hidden, so I'm going to plug them using a 1/2" dowel. Now if you're wondering, did I use wood glue on the dowels? I did not. These are just dry fit, so at a later point if I need to break this down and give this to someone, I could easily do so. If you shop around, I'm pretty sure you can find dowel caps that you can use to cover up the screw heads. After doing this for the lower arch, I then repeated the same steps for the upper arch. At this point, everything looks pretty good, so I'm going to sand down the entire thing and even clean up all the areas like the dowel sections. And to make this a little more safe and kid friendly, I'm going to round over the edge. I was super excited because I was really close to being done with this section of the build. Now what really happened was I took this in the house and I'm like, hey, what you think about this? And the lady of the house says, it looks cool, but why are those edges like that? So I had to go back to the shop and then put on edge band after I had already rounded it over, which made it a lot tougher than it should have been. Usually I don't ask for approval, I just build and I go and then here's the finished product. But since this one is for the kid, I felt like there should be some input as well. But that pretty much got me more work. If you put on edge banding before, then you know that could be a little bit of a struggle. But try putting it on with rounded over edges and also on an arch. For the final touches, I put on 2 coats of polyacrylic. With the learning tower going vertical, I need to add some feet on it to prevent it from tipping over. Each of the feet will be constructed with 3 parts. The 2 smaller parts will be attached with 2 screws, one at the top and one at the bottom. The hole in the middle will be used to attach the leg to the tower. I drilled the hole approximately halfway to begin with, and then I held off right there. Start off with a small bit to use as a pilot hole. And while I'm at that, I'm also going to drill the holes right into the smaller feet. Now I'm going to drill a 3/8 hole into the middle hole because here I'm going to install a threaded insert. Now back to that middle hole, I'm going to drill it out all the way. There's no reason for these smaller legs to be detachable, so I'm going to use some wood glue and attach them permanently. Now all I have to do is sand it down, apply a polyacrylic finish, and go ahead and attach them with the screw. And one of the final things left to do is to cut down a 1" dowel to the same width as the learning tower. Approximately 1 inch in from each end, I installed a screw with a plastic washer that I salvaged from a TV bracket. These washers will act as a stop so that the rods cannot slide out. And finally, it's on to installing the feet. I'm always in work mode and I'm trying my best not to let these moments get past me. So anytime I can, I'm gonna enjoy a little bit of time with her.